How? 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 How is he coming back? Like, explain it to me like I'm 5. How is Rob Thomson coming back? I guess that like, the whole video I did about Bruce Bochy and how I thought he would be the manager in 2026 is aged like milk in the Sahara. Because I made that so confidently thinking there is no way, there's no justification after watching the series that we watched, after watching the Phillies go from World Series to NLCS collapse to losing to a division rival in embarrassing fashion with home field advantage to then losing to the Dodgers the way that they did. It's not the fact that you lost the Dodgers, it's the way they lost to the Dodgers. It's the horrible, horrendous moves by the manager. I thought there's no way. There's no way. No way they're going to run it back. Look, Rob, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Move on. And then the report comes out today that they're going to run it back. That they're bringing back Rob Thomson. Now, it's not known if they're bringing back Kevin Long, and you would think they probably would. I didn't have a problem with them running it back last year with essentially the same roster. I know a lot of people had a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought, okay, well, look, if they do have holes, Dombrowski will address the trade deadline, which he did for the most part. Wasn't overly impressed by the moves other than Duran, but still thought Duran could have been fixed in the offseason if they had signed anyone not named Jordan Romano, but whatever. But I thought, okay, like, yeah, look, this is a really good baseball team. They ran into the hot team. Run it back. Run it back, you'll still win 90-plus games. You'll get in the playoffs. Run it back. They'll fix it. And they didn't. They did not even come close. And when you look back at the litany of moves that Rob Thomson made that ended up putting the Phillies on the back foot, I don't get this in the slightest. I am confused. And if you're somebody out there that wants him back, please, in the comments, let me know why. What has he done to deserve to be back? I will remind everybody, this is like a $300 million payroll. They're expected to be in the postseason, especially with expanded postseason. This isn't like in '07 when there was that one wild card spot. It was like, all right, let's go, and it was you were pumped. Like getting into the playoffs was legitimately an accomplishment. Now it's not an accomplishment. Now it's a formality with how much this team is spending. So to get into the playoffs isn't the accomplishment. This team has bigger aspirations than getting into the... If you're the Cincinnati Reds, getting into the playoffs is an accomplishment. If you're the Philadelphia Phillies with that payroll, winning a World Series, that is the accomplishment. That is it. That is where the buck stops. Starts and stops and starts and stops again. It goes in a circle. World Series, that's it. World Series, that's it. There is no kumbaya moment. There is no, well, they tried their best. No. Not with how much this owner is spending, especially with the luxury tax situation, because he's paying more. So the fact that you are bringing back a guy that shit the bed in the playoffs. Look, the Dodgers are really, really good. I expect them to win the World Series again. But you had a shot and your manager took you out of it. Going to David Roberts, who clearly didn't have his stuff. You luck out. He gets out of it. You bring him back for the 7th? Where he promptly lets 2 guys on because he didn't have his stuff? And then you bring in Matt Strahm, who doesn't come in with inherited runners all season long, but you bring him in that spot and he gives up the home run? No wonder he's tipping his pitches. He's not used to having guys on base. You don't bring in Tanner Banks. No, we're not doing that. Later on, you bring in, Orion Kirkring, who's quite literally one of the worst relief pitchers in all of baseball, coming in with inherited runners. You're hitting Brandon Marsh 5th in your lineup. Because, oh my God, we can't divert from righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty. Can't divert from that. The only good thing I can think that he did was get Aaron Nola out before the big inning. But even then, you can't count on your $24 million pitcher because you're worried that the big inning is coming because we all knew the big inning was coming. That's not on Rob Thomson, by the way. That's more of a Dave Dombrowski complaint. But what are they doing? How is the fan base supposed to get excited after what I just watched? By the way, and I'm somebody that didn't even have a problem with the bunt call. If you're somebody out there that had a problem with the bunt call, I can't imagine what you're going through right now finding out the news that Rob Thomson will be back. I am stunned. I am floored. I am aghast. All the adjectives that they watched that series and thought, yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy for what? To get you to the playoffs? I'd argue with this lineup, you could be the guy. Yes, you, the person watching this, could be the guy to get them to the playoffs. That's how loaded this team should be. But to win? And it's not like I think Dave Roberts is the best manager in the world. I thought that both managers were horrible, but I thought Rob Thomson took the cake. It was like bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and he's keeping his job. As a Phillies fan, this is, to me, it feels like another loss. It feels like another L. I felt like they had a chance to actually move on after, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 years now of essentially the same, slowly sinking ship, whatever you want to call it, window closing. I would love to hear the justification of why the Phillies are bringing him back. Because for the life of me, after watching that series, I can't figure it out. And again, this isn't like, I could tell you right now, like, hand up. I don't like Aaron Nola. If I never watch him pitch again, I will be thrilled. I've been driving the Sirianni, he's not a good coach bandwagon for the longest time. I've never been on this with Rob Thomson. This is not like I've been banging the drum all season and, all right, damn it, I'm not right in this situation, so what the hell? No, like, this literally started this series because his mistakes jumped out in neon. And I appreciate what he did for the organization, but to bring him back after what we watched, I'm confused. It's a very confusing day in Philly sports. Za'Darius Smith, and then this. Don't get it at all. Please subscribe. I need subscribers really bad. I'm desperate. Thumbs ups are cool. Thumbs downs are okay too. Comments. Let me know your general feeling on this as a Phillies fan. But yeah, I'm going to go try to make sense of it because I can't. Joining me now from The Athletic is their esteemed Eagles beat writer, Zach Berman, who's got a new book, which we'll be getting into. Zach, how are you?
Doing great. Good talking to you, Pat.
Yeah, good talking to you too. I wish it was under a little bit better circumstances, but the Eagles are 4-2. You can make the argument they really should be 3-3. A lot of people are panicking a bit. You watch them, you cover them, you're at every press conference. In your opinion, what's the matter with this team right now?
Yeah, I mean, offensively, they're out of sync, right? And that's pretty clear to see. And I think that I understand you can point to the defense as well, right? It's never just one thing, but I had higher expectations for this offense. I think when you have 9 Pro Bowl caliber players, and there's continuity there, you shouldn't be talking about being on the same page 6 weeks into the season or 6 games into the season. So I don't think 4-2 is the end of the world. I mean, frankly, they have 3 wins against teams that are near the top of the league, but these last 2 games, and really these last 6 quarters were problematic, and that's something that the Eagles need to look at.
When you look at their offense, a lot of people are blaming Kevin Patullo, their new offensive coordinator. I kind of go the other way a little bit. I'm more in the mind of, is Nick Sirianni meddling a bit, because it seems like when he kind of touches the offensive play sheet, it doesn't end up going well. In your opinion, though, is this a Kevin Patullo situation of a new OC getting his feet wet and learning under the job, or is there a chance that Nick Sirianni's kind of doing Nick Sirianni things after winning the Super Bowl and calling some plays a bit?
Well, I mean, I think Kevin Patullo is calling the plays. I don't think this is Nick interjecting per se. Now, it's never just one guy, right? I mean, the players need to make plays. Jalen Hurts, who he's been good. Then there's been some some periods there where he hasn't played well enough. He's had passes downfield, whether it was to Devontae Smith against the Giants, A.J. Brown against the Broncos, where they didn't connect. But frankly, the way I look at this is the burden of proof is on Kevin Patullo, in that I've seen these offensive players play at a high level, win a Super Bowl. I've seen Nick Sirianni, be one of the top coaches in the league. I haven't seen Kevin Patullo call plays before this year. So I think the burden of proof is on Patullo to show that he's not what's holding them back here. And it's still early; it's 6 games in, but yeah, I mean, I would like to see more from Kevin as a play caller.
When you look at this team and the comparisons to the 2023 team, I think a lot of fans immediately jumped on that because of the fact that, we saw them in the Super Bowl, like bludgeon the Chiefs, and then they come out and they do look a little flat in week 1, and then it carries over to week 2. Immediately fans start saying, oh, it's 2023 all over again. After watching 6 weeks of this season and all of 2023, what do you think are the similarities and the differences between those two teams?
Yeah, I don't think that the teams are comparable per se, Pat. I think it's more the I mean, the circumstances. You can look at that, but as far as the teams, this this team's much better than that team, especially defensively. When you look at the talent that the Eagles have, when you look at the coaching that the Eagles have on the defensive side of the ball, I think the Eagles are superior there. Offensively, I frankly think the Eagles were playing well offensively for much of that season. I mean, AJ was on his historic pace through October that year. They were just turning the ball over late in the year, and the Eagles aren't really turning the ball over this year. And I mean, not nearly at the same rate. It's just the inefficiency is more pronounced than it was, frankly, any of the years here. I mean, you have to go back to like the 2021 season, Nick's first year, and I mean, frankly, the offensive numbers were better then in terms of the offensive, in terms of the efficiency. To answer the question succinctly, I don't see 2023 as a comp as far as the way the teams are comprised. If you want to look at the comp, it's that team had high expectations coming off a Super Bowl appearance, and they started off what 10-0 and
Yeah,
11.
they were great.
Yeah, this year's team, the circumstances are different, but I think the pressure on them is comparable for sure.
They're 4-2, and this is without Saquon Barkley having a 100-yard game yet. What do you think's been the issue getting him going?
Yeah, I mean, I always start with the front, right? And I say that because, even before Saquon got here, DeAndre Swift was 1,000-yard rusher. Miles Sanders was 1,000-yard rusher. And I don't think this offensive line is run blocking the way or with the same effectiveness that they have in the past. Now there are a lot of there are a lot of things you can look at, right? When the Eagles are behind the chains on first down and you're in second and long situations, it's not an obvious, it's more of a passing situation, and so I think that the game circumstances haven't helped, but ultimately I don't think they are blocking as well as they have in the past, and I think that's something that needs to be fortified. And I think in that locker room they would tell you the same thing.
When you hear the players and the body language, and I know you tweeted out a bunch of quotes yesterday. Overall, though, what is the body language with this team right now? Is it a positive? Is it like oh crap, it's happening again, a la in reference to 2023? Like, is it? Yeah, what's the mindset?
Yeah, I don't think it's an oh crap, this is happening again. And I saw that quote. I think it was on ESPN. I mean, I certainly I'm in that locker room every day, and I don't get the sentiment that they think this is 2023 all over again. But I do think this is a locker room that's way they know what the expectations are. I think there's a lot of guys who obviously want to play better, but think they should be playing better. And I think AJ Brown's demeanor, for lack of a better term, has been scrutinized this year. And I think AJ is one of those guys who would tell you that he wants to be a reason why this team's winning, and he hasn't been as productive as he needs to be. And across the board, I think you've seen that, and you've seen some different circumstances in games, whether it was Jalen Carter getting ejected in the season opener, and then they've had some real I would say foolish penalties or costly penalties, however you want to frame it, during these first 6 weeks. This is a team that I don't think to use Nick Sirianni's term, I don't think they're doing the things that require no talent well enough. And in the past, you've always looked at them and you said, this is a team that's played really hard, that's been disciplined, that hasn't beaten themselves. And I've seen that more and more really these past 2 weeks, and they need to clean that up.
Talking about AJ Brown and the trade deadline's coming up, and I kind of roll my eyes when I just hear any situation of AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts beefing. I just think it's kind of a fake story. But you are there every day, and I recently saw a thing of like, where will AJ Brown end up? Can you dispel that rumor, or do you want to, I guess,
Yeah.
stoke the fire a bit?
No, I don't expect AJ Brown to get traded this season, and I don't expect him to get traded because first off, he's one of the best players in the league, and Howie Roseman's in the business of trying to acquire players like AJ Brown, not in the business of trading players like AJ Brown. Um, the cap makes it near prohibitive. You know, I know people like to point to the cap on it, but I think when you point to the cap on it, you're not really seeing the forest through the trees, right? Because like the reason you don't trade AJ Brown isn't because of the cap hit. The reason you don't trade AJ Brown is because he's a really good football player, and you know it makes your team worse. It doesn't make your team better. Yeah, I don't expect them to do it, and I also think too that like this is what Nick Sirianni's here for is the managing the locker room dynamics. That's a big part of his responsibility, and that's supposed to be like what he does exceptionally well. And so I think dealing with this is on. It's obviously it's on the players, but it's on Nick too to make sure that this doesn't fester into a bigger issue than it might already be.
When you witness AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts, what is their relationship like? I've always been under the assumption they are best friends. Jalen Hurts was there, obviously, at AJ Brown's house when they got drafted, and the whole backstory. But do you think it's a little bit of a fractured relationship?
Yeah, so I'm not trying to evade the question here, Pat. I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Is that uh, I I I always kind of pause when when reporters who are in there try to act as if they're they're psychologists or therapists here. Like there's a lot of human dynamics there between those two, and with any relationship. And from what I've heard, the relationship might not be what it was when they first got here. Um, but I can't tell you definitively based on my interactions with them, and I'm not going to dinner with them. I'm not hanging out with them, and frankly, I'm not talking to them together. I'm just talking to AJ at one point, Jalen at another point. So it would be it would be disingenuous for me to suggest that I have insight as far as like the particulars of their relationship. But yeah, I mean, if you just look at it anecdotally and you listen to what they said, and they talked about this on the record a few weeks ago that they talk in meetings, right? And that that's kind of the I don't want to say the extent of it, but that's the nature of it. And then so this is a roundabout. This is a roundabout way of me saying that I don't know the specifics there, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's what it was in 2022, but I can't tell you
My big
specifically
takeaway was that
why
they
or
don't
what.
invite you to dinner, and that's rude because they should.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to go to dinner with Jalen and with AJ, right? And especially together. I mean, that would be a fun. That'd be
Something
a
tells me you're
dinner.
not picking up the check if that happens. The trade deadline
Yeah.
is coming up. Howie is known for making trades. I saw you tweet this out, one specific position that you think that will be addressed. But what do you think they end up doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to acquire an edge rusher, and um, I thought they needed one before Za'Darius Smith retired. I think that's more pronounced now that Za'Darius Smith retired. And I look at it, and I also think it's a position that they are players to add. Now, the reason I don't want to say that I'm hesitant here, but uh, the midseason acquisition hasn't necessarily worked out swimmingly for Howie during these past few years, right? I mean, I don't think Kevin Byard had the desired effect that they wanted. I don't think Robert Quinn had the desired effect that they wanted. It's hard times to acquire a high profile player in the middle of the season and expect that type of production. Also, I mean, not for nothing, Howie's made 6 trades since the start of training camp, and that he still has 10 projected draft picks next year. But I don't think that they're going to be. I don't think they're going to take a huge swing unless it's a guy with term on his deal. So I kind of caution the fans who might be wondering, are they going to acquire Trey Hendrickson, right? That's not the type of move that I see the Eagles making. I think it's one that might be more on the margins unless it's a guy who has term on his deal.
When looking at some of the moves that Howie made in the offseason, what do you think's been the biggest mistake he made? Was it letting Darius Slay go? Was it Mekhi Becton not re-signing him? Because both positions seem like they're a little bit weaker after letting both players go. Or is there another one?
Yeah, Well, I mean, at the cornerback spot, I would pivot to Isaiah Rodgers because I think that was a very manageable contract for a player that was, I don't want to say ascending, but like kind of in the prime of his career, right? I mean, the age profile is different than with Slay, and I think that was a deal that the Eagles could have and should have and probably wanted to get done, and so I think Isaiah Rodgers would have given them um, some more, a player that they know and a player that I think was ascending into a starting role. You've seen that in Minnesota. I also think that the way they kind of navigated day 2 of the draft, and then look, the reality is when you're drafting at the bottom of every round, you're not going to get all the guys you want. Like that's just the reality of the situation. I mean, I think Eagles fans see it's easier to draft good players when you have 2 first-round picks like the Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith year. You're you have 2 second-round picks and you can trade up for Cooper DeJean. But I think day 2 in the draft didn't work out the way the Eagles wanted it to, and I think that there are positions, whether it's offensive tackle, whether it's edge rusher, whether it's tight end, that I thought they would come out of day 2 with, they came out of day 2 with one player, and that was a safety, Makuba. And it's not that it's bad, but if you're telling me that your first 2 days of the draft, you're getting an off-ball linebacker and a safety, and you don't get help on either side of the line of scrimmage, and tight ends spot where they could use depth. I think navigating day 2 of the draft is something that they could have done differently and better.
Zach, you've got a new book out right now. Your first book, Underdogs, must read. It'll bring back all those good memories of 2018. But your new book, Leap Year, tell us about it.
Yes. So this takes you from the red confetti that fell in February 2023 to the green confetti that fell in February 2025. And so it looks at the collapse of the 2023 season, looks at the offseason in 2024, a magical offseason that brought in Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond and Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. It takes you behind the scenes of what made last year's team special. And it's not just like the week by week account, like on the ground accounting for what was going on, but also there's cutaway chapters in here on Jeffrey Lurie, on Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Lane Johnson, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, Darius Slay, where you really get to know who these guys are underneath the helmet. And I enjoyed those chapters in particular. I put you inside the locker room when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I hope that the reader feels like they're experiencing that celebration, right? I started the book that way. Brandon Graham wrote the foreword. I'm grateful for that. There's no one else I would rather have write the foreword for this book. So, I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I think this allows you to relive the Super Bowl season and kind of learn about what made that team special.
Yeah, I think every Eagles fan would like to relive that season that ended with a 41-6 beatdown. 41-22. Yeah. Anyway, you got some book signings coming up, right? Where people can actually pick this up, meet you, and shake your hand, get it signed.
Yeah, I will put those out there. I have one. I don't know when this is appearing, but Thursday night at the Pen and Pencil in Philly. But there's going to be some multiple ones at some local bookshops, really around like late October, around the bye week and into November and December. So I will put that all out on my social media at ZBerm on Twitter, X, and then Z_Berman at Instagram.
Zach, I can't tell you how much I love reading Underdogs, and I'm looking forward to biting into Leap Year as well. I'm assuming just Amazon is probably, but wherever books are sold, make sure to pick it up. Halloween's coming up, to give it out to the kids. They'll love it. And then Christmas, obviously, as well. So, sure. Zach, I really appreciate the time, man, and I'll hopefully talk to you pretty soon.
Anytime. Thanks, Pat.
Kyle Schwarber and JT Realmuto will be back. I have a better chance of being on the Phillies next season than those two guys not being on the Phillies next season. That's how confident I am that both of those guys will be back. Let me explain. We'll start off with JT Realmuto. JT Realmuto entered the final year of his 5-year deal this season. There isn't any extension in place. Obviously, that's why we're having this conversation. He is older. Some would say he's breaking down. It's understandable because Rob Thomson has driven him into the ground by only playing him at catcher, even though with the universal DH, you actually have flexibility in that spot. You could play JT at first base. You could play your first baseman in right field when your right fielder was bad. You could play JT at DH if you want to. No, we're not going to do any of that. He's only going to play catcher. Off the top of your head, do you have any idea how many games Rafael Marchand, the backup, played? He played in 42 games last year. He had 105 plate appearances. There is no way in hell that the Philadelphia Phillies are ready to hand it over to that guy. And then you ask yourself why. Why exactly did Rafael Marchand, the backup, only appear in 42 games? Why did he only have 105 plate appearances? It's really easy. One, he's cheap. Very cheap. The second one is that the Phillies don't have faith in Rafael Marchand. More importantly, they have the utmost confidence in JT Realmuto to handle a pitching staff. I think that they give JT Realmuto a lot of credit for the evolution of guys like Ranger Suarez, guys like Chris Sanchez. I look at both it's JT and it's Caleb Cotham. I think it's a combination of, and obviously the pitcher working hard and developing, but I think it's all three of those guys. But they give a lot of credit and they have a lot of faith in JT Realmuto behind the plate. They don't really, I don't think, care at this point if his bat is not where it was at one point when he was the best catcher in baseball. Because at this point he's not. But what he gives you is what a lot of teams have. They don't have this dominant hitting catcher. I mean, look around baseball. The Salvador Perez's of the world, few and far between. And JT at one point was that, but because he was that for so long, I think we are preconditioned to think that that is everywhere, and it's not the case. And I think the Phillies are willing to take a hit on the fact that, yeah, okay, his bat is probably good. He's 250 with maybe 18 home runs, steal like 10 bags. I think they're willing to take that hit knowing what they're getting defensively, which is a cannon behind the dish. The framing isn't really going to matter nearly as much with the whatever system you call it, but the robot umps. So the framing that I don't want to say he's made his living on behind the plate, but he's really, really good at it. And he's really, it's a calling card of his. That's not going to matter nearly as much, but everything else, the way that this guy calls a game, the way that he handles the staff, you see it, you hear about it, consistently hear about it. There's no way they let him walk. He's also a leader in the locker room. And I think most importantly, when you forget the human angle of this, does he want to move? Like, he's been here for a while. I know he didn't want to move the last time. I know he didn't want to sign with another team. He was very confused about how all the contract negotiations were going. No, like, he doesn't want to uproot his family and move to another place. So I think the Phillies are going to absolutely get a deal done with JT Realmuto because he's too well liked in the locker room. He handles the staff great. He's pretty much everything you would want in a catcher. It's just unfortunately with his age, his bat has taken a hit. With all of that said, he's not going to get a 5-year deal. I would expect a 3-year deal. Maybe you bump it up to even a 2-year deal, but you pay a little bit more money than you normally would have just to have that AAV down. It's worth mentioning, they did trade their number one catching prospect in Eduardo Tait. Their new number one catching prospect is Caleb Ricketts. He's 25 years old. He's at AA, and he's not very good. So it's not like they have somebody in the pipeline. They kind of hamstrung themselves when they traded Eduardo Tait. And now they're in a situation where there's a little bit of leverage there with JT Realmuto unless they make a trade for like an Adley Rushman, but I don't see that happening. All right, moving on to Kyle Schwarber. Yeah, this one I have the utmost confidence on, and there's a few reasons why. One, he's an incredible baseball player, and boy, did I take a hit with that one. I fumbled that bag. I didn't want Kyle Schwarber when he first signed with the Phillies. I thought it was a typical Phillies move, if you will, of like we're paying for the rumor necessarily, not the production. At the point, he was hitting like 200. And, for most of his Phillies career, he hit 200. But he also would sprinkle in those like 45 home runs that we grew accustomed to. The biggest reason why Kyle Schwarber is going to be back with the Phillies is because he is so well liked in the locker room combined with the production. Obviously, the production everybody knows about. But baseball is the ultimate vibe sport. Like, you need a good, cohesive locker room. These guys are around each other far too much. 162 games a year. They are constantly interacting. You need a guy like Kyle Schwarber who is universally liked by everybody in the locker room and can keep everybody loose and happy and free. On the flip side, the pessimist will say, well, what does it matter? They keep losing in the NLDS, and I get that. But he is so revered in that locker room that I think even if he had a down year, he would have been back. And that's the thing is like, I don't necessarily think Dave Dombrowski was expecting a down year, but he wasn't expecting an MVP type year. And now he's put himself in a position where he is going to pay out the nose for Kyle Schwarber, because Kyle Schwarber has a legitimate chance of winning the MVP. If not, he'll probably finish second, and that doesn't help out the purse strings of one John Middleton. And that's the biggest reason why Kyle Schwarber will be back. John Middleton has a horrible poker face, the worst poker face. We all remember John Middleton say, we're going to spend stupid money. You know, I mean, he got pressured by Bryce Harper to, in a way, like just cut the check for JT Realmuto. And I think when it comes to Kyle Schwarber, a guy that universally, once again, is well respected, not only in that clubhouse, but in the organization, I think if push comes to shove and there's an offer on the table for Kyle Schwarber for him to leave Philly, and Dave Dombrowski's playing hardball, I would expect John Middleton to walk in, slam his checkbook down with a signature sign and say, whatever it takes to keep this guy. Because John Middleton at this point is bloodthirsty for a championship. And there's only like maybe 5 or 6 teams that actually have ownership that is willing to spend to win a championship. The Phillies are one of them. Who do you replace Kyle Schwarber with? How do you replace 56, 57 home runs? Like, how do you don't find that on the open market. And there will obviously be suitors, but Kyle Schwarber is about to set the new market for DH. He is going to get a monster contract. And the good thing about DH and the good thing about Kyle Schwarber and his production is like, you don't lose the power. You know, you might lose the bat speed over time, but you don't lose the power. We've seen a history of the Phillies where they're willing to go, okay, we understand this asset that we're signing is probably going to be a diminished asset when we reach the end of their contract. We're willing to get to that. We're willing to get to the end of the contract in order to get the contract signed. And I think that will be a situation with Kyle Schwarber where they might go, look, we'll give you 5 years, knowing full well that in 5 years, you're probably not hitting 40 home runs. And we're okay with that because in years 1 through 4, you probably will be hitting 40 home runs. So I think when you combine all of that, when you combine Kyle Schwarber's production at the plate, when you combine how well liked he is, when you combine an owner that's willing to spend and has a horrible poker face, there is no way in hell that Kyle Schwarber is playing for another team not named the Philadelphia Phillies. If I was John Middleton, I'd be very pissed off at Dave Dombrowski for pulling this. But he's put himself in a situation where he's going to pay a lot of money. But at the end of the day, Kyle Schwarber will be back with the Phillies. I will do a whole season breakdown of who I expect to stay, go, all of that. But these two guys, I think, are the big-time people big-time players that fans are wondering whether or not they're going to leave because they're fan favorites. I don't expect them to leave. Now's the part where I ask you guys to please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe. Please subscribe. Hit thumbs up if you like this video. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought the video sucked. Leave it in the comment section of what you expect the contracts to be for both JT and Kyle Schwarber, and whether or not you'd let one of these guys walk. And if you do want to let one of them walk, who are you bringing in to replace their production?
That didn't last long. Za'Darius Smith's storied Eagles tenure ends in 5 games. Yeah. I don't think anyone expected Za'Darius Smith to be a Pro Bowl player for the Birds. After all, he was on the streets after week 1. But when he signed, if you remember, like I released a video and I was pumped. I thought this was great. And this is another sign of Howie Roseman doing Howie Roseman things. After watching week 1, he said, you know what, we can improve. We're not going to sit on our laurels. We're going to go out and we're going to get a former 3-time Pro Bowler, just like we did the year that they got Ndamukong Suh. Ironically, that year was 2023, but still. And they go out and they sign Za'Darius Smith, who would help at the edge rush because you let Josh Sweat go, understandably so. He got paid a whole lot of money. But you haven't really heavily invested in the edge a ton. I mean, I guess you could say Nolan Smith because he is an edge rusher in a sense, but he's also a linebacker. So, yeah, they haven't invested in it a ton, as I said. And with Nolan Smith being injured, a lot of these guys just haven't stepped up. You know, the Josh Uches of the world have not really shown themselves. They haven't had a sack from a defensive end in quite some time. And the pressure on the quarterback is really coming from up front. It's coming from the Jalen Carters, the Jordan Davises, the Moro Jomos. It's not really coming from the edge. And when you lose Josh Sweat, but you also lose Brandon Graham. I mean, look, Brandon Graham is what he was at that point. But when you lose those kind of guys, it has an effect. You go out, you get Za'Darius Smith. Okay, fine. He decides, you know what? I don't have it anymore. I don't have the love. I don't have the passion. I'm going to retire. Every report out there, from Diana Rossini to Zach Berman, who I'm hoping to get on, Every report says this was not an Eagles-related situation. This was merely a personal choice by Za'Darius Smith. He decided he wanted to walk off in the sunset. Okay, fine. I guess good. Counter to that would be, if guys think they're going to win a Super Bowl, they don't retire. They don't. If guys think that they are going to win a championship when they have never won a championship, they don't walk away. So I know Za'Darius Smith is saying all the right things and saying it's personal and, I just didn't have the love of the game and I appreciate the Eagles for bringing me in, but I lost the passion and all that. You can tell me what you want. And, you can say till you're blue in the face, this has nothing to do with the Eagles. And I'm not telling you that it has everything to do with what's going on with the Eagles, but to me, this is another red flag. It might not be the biggest red flag, but it is a slight red flag that an NFL veteran came into the locker room, saw what was going on after 5 weeks, because remember, he wasn't here for week 1, and he said, you know what, this isn't worth my time. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna leave. Now, the trickle-down effect is that many people expected the Eagles to go out and get an edge rusher at the trade deadline. This really, really, really heightens that up. They're really going to have to go out and get an edge rusher. Nolan Smith will be back after the bye, but even then, you're going to need somebody else on the opposite side, so they're going to have to invest in that. But I think the message that is being sent is clear to me that we can no longer ignore the comparisons to 2023 because things are coming apart at the seams. But unlike 2023, and this is the big difference, unlike 2023, they still have plenty of time to figure it out and fix it. And I keep telling myself 2023 will never happen again because the impact guys that were on the roster in 2023 are still on the roster in 2026 or 2025. It'll be 2026 in a little bit. So I keep telling myself, look, guys like Jalen Hurts, they'll figure it out. Guys like A.J. Brown, they'll figure it out because they remember the pain of 2023. They don't want to go back to that. Will Nick Sirianni figure it out? I don't know. But that report from Tim McManus after the 2023 season didn't paint the rosiest picture of what happens in the Eagles facility when things start going south. Nick Sirianni doesn't handle it well. Don't worry. As the number one Nick Sirianni hater, I will stop bashing on him. I should have to bring that in. But, yeah, I know the reports are saying it's all personal. I'm just here to tell you, if that guy thought he was winning the Super Bowl, he's not retiring. And I think there's plenty of time for them to turn it around. I think there's plenty of time for them to prove Za'Darius Smith and many people out there wrong and to make the fan base feel a lot better about the situation. But you go out, you lose, and okay, fine, you lost one game. It happens. You choked. Then you lose to the Giants the way you did. I know they're 4-2, but they could easily be 3-3. They probably should be 3-3, and that, to me, raises alarm bells. Because what has changed? Not a whole lot. Mekhi Becton. Okay. The edge rushers that left in Josh Sweat. I mean, Milton Williams was replaced by Moro Ojomo. That shouldn't be too much. Darius Slay, Keely Ringo. I mean, I think the biggest loss is Mekhi Becton. But did he have that much of an impact on this offense? So it's like, okay, well, what changed? They brought in a young offensive coordinator, and their offense looks a little broken. Yeah. Za'Darius Smith sent us a message today. He sent us a clear message. He said it without saying it. And of course, he's not going to leave and say, oh my God, it has everything to do with the Eagles' dysfunctional locker room and the shit show that's going on. Could you believe it? Of course he's not going to say that. I mean, could you imagine if he did? Yeah, he's going to say all the right things. That's what you're taught to do. You're taught when you leave a job, don't burn bridges. Don't burn bridges. Maybe I learned that. Maybe I didn't personally. But this is a red flag for me. Subscribe, please. That would be cool. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Let me know if I'm overreacting. Let me know if it's just a personal thing and you have all the faith in the world. But I don't right now. No, I'm not feeling great as an Eagles fan. Hey, go Birds!